Welcome back to Titletown Talk with your host, Jackson Tolliver. We're going to get right into it today because we have a lot to talk about. The Celtics, they had, obviously dropped their game. We'll talk about that. They got another big game tonight. The Bruins split this week. They got another one tonight. The Red Sox making some moves. The Revolution looked good last night in the Champions Cup, and now they're running it back this weekend against Atlanta. Tough matchup there. And we're going to talk about the Patriots with a special guest today from Boston Globe Today and the Northeastern's radio network. Khalin Kapoor is going to talk with us about the Patriots free agency and draft decisions that are looming. All right, let's start with the elephant in the room. The first time I've ever recorded an episode after the Celtics have lost a game. The Celtics dropped their game on the road against the Cleveland Cavaliers 105-104 after a scorching hot Dean Wade, of all people, outscored the Celtics single-handedly in the fourth quarter, leading to the Celtics' largest ever dropping of a comeback win. They were up by 22, and they lost the game by 1 point. So tough scenes there. Now, I'll start by saying this. This game, and pretty much every game for the rest of the regular season, doesn't matter all too much because the Celtics have such a commanding lead over the rest of the Eastern Conference at this point. I don't see any other team catching up to them. They're about 8 games ahead of the Cavs and the Bucks right now. Both those teams also lost last night, so already evened out from that Cavs game. The Celtics aren't going to lose every single game the rest of the way. They're also not going to win every single game the rest of the way, but they have such a commanding lead. They're going to get the 1 seed. I mentioned this last game. So, in the grand scheme of things, not too concerned with the result. What I am more concerned about is how the game unfolded, particularly at the end. Letting Dean Wade go off on a heater against you by just not guarding him from 3, and, it was lazy defense, lazy offense, whatever. They don't care. The fans don't really care too much about these games for the rest of the stretch because they don't matter. But what I am concerned about is something that I've seen happen repeatedly this season, which is the late game execution. I don't mean the last 5 minutes or even the last 2 minutes. I mean the last possession, ball in Tatum's hand. They need a bucket to either force overtime or win the game, or force double overtime or win the game, and it doesn't work out. Now, when I say it doesn't work out, Tatum has taken 7 of those shots in the last final seconds of the game to tie or go ahead, right, coming from down. He's taken 7. He's made 0. 0% of those shots have gone in, and it's been the same situation every time, right? We've seen it this season and in seasons past. Tatum takes the ball, dribbles, lets the clock go down until they're going to take the last shot. No timeout call from Mazzulla. Tatum drives, gets guarded, fadeaway jumper from mid-range, doesn't go. It's happened every time this season. We saw it against the Nuggets. We saw it against Charlotte. We saw it this game, obviously. It's just not an effective shot from him. It doesn't work out. So the question is, why do they keep doing it? Now, there's a lot of elements of this, these last 20 seconds that I'll get into because it was a very chaotic way to finish a game, as Tatum said after the game. First of all, Dean Wade gets a crazy offensive putback. Had to be Dean Wade. Celtics are down 1. Joe Mazzulla, there's 2 timeouts left. Call one. It's not like you're in transition and you have momentum and you're waiting for the Cavs rather to get set. You're slow. You're going down the court slowly. There's no reason for you to not call a timeout and draw something up. Right? There's just no reason for it. I don't understand why you want to let these guys improvise when it has been proven that it's more effective when you just call a timeout and talk things over. That's all. And I know that they also get to talk things over, but guess what? The Cavs are solid on defense, and they have 2 guys. I know Mobley was out of the game at the time, but they have a crazy good front court that is going to be able to guard you, right? So you need to be able to draw something up, especially when you have the most dynamic, talented offensive starting 5s that the NBA has ever seen. It's up there. It's got to be top 5. So regardless, he didn't call a timeout. So now you get into my second gripe, which is the slow-paced nature of that final possession. If you're down 1 point, you shouldn't be taking the last shot with 20 seconds left, because if you miss, which they did, you can foul one of their guys. Maybe you get to foul Jarrett Allen or someone who's not as good from the free throw line. And even if they make both, you have a second chance at scoring that bucket. So the question is, why are you holding for the last shot? I understand that you don't want to give it back to them, but the Celtics are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. So that part I also don't really understand. Like, give yourself 2 chances at it at least. And this slow game doesn't work. And when are they going to learn that it doesn't work? Because it keeps happening. If they didn't do this, they'd lose half as much games. They would. I don't even know if they had double-digit losses right now, because there's times in the game where, for example, Kristaps Porzingis, absolutely clutch at the end of that game, right? Had the and one that gave the Celtics the lead for a second. Was all over them. He's 7-3. Just give him the ball and hope for the best. Give him a mismatch, which is how he scored the majority of his points. Like, he has, I think, the most post-up points in the NBA at this point. So why are we not just giving him the ball, forcing a mismatch, and hoping that he draws contact? Because it's much more effective than Tatum trying to draw contact off a fader. Because realistically, that was almost an offensive foul with the kick out. So that just didn't make any sense to me. You have to give it to one of your other guys in that situation, because Tatum's also getting doubled. So what's up with that? Yes, the refereeing was questionable at the end, but people are saying online that if the refs didn't call it, Kristaps would have had that putback. No, he wouldn't have. That's not true. If you go back and watch the game, the time would have ran out. The only reason why it looked like he had that putback is because they stopped the clock at 0.7 when they called the foul. Should have been more time on the clock for that jump ball center circle after they overturned the call. Should have been out 1.5 seconds. And also, the ref should have acknowledged a timeout from Joe Mazzulla instead of just calling the game, because whether you want to call it after Porzingis tipped it or Derek White, in both scenarios, there was still time on the clock. When it was firmly in Derek White's hands and Joe Mazzulla was calling a timeout, there's 0.2 on the clock. How is that not reviewed? The NBA has a serious officiating problem at the end of games, and it's not just for the Celtics, it's for every team in the NBA. We've seen teams protesting losses. We've seen unfair foul calls or no calls that should have went in one direction, and it didn't, and it resulted in an unfair loss. So I feel like the NBA has this problem that other leagues don't have. Like, the NFL, I feel like, rarely gets stuff wrong, especially when they look at it. I mean, they have questionable PI calls and roughing the passer calls, but once they review something, I find it very rare that it's false. VAR in soccer, same thing. I find it very rare that they get that wrong. Really, every other sport. Baseball, I find it very rare. What am I missing? Hockey, also find it very rare that they make a mistake after a review. But in the NBA, I feel like they make more mistakes after a review, and I don't understand why. Because the next day, or even in some cases after the game, they have it right. So why can't they just get it right? I just don't understand it. Serious problem that needs to be addressed. But I'm not going to say that's why the Celtics lost, because that's not true. The Celtics shot themselves in the foot. They were playing with their food. They're up 20. They think they're going to win, and they start messing around on offense and defense, not doing what they should do to close out a game. Now, if it's a playoff game, I like to think that this doesn't happen, and that they, put more effort into it, and they actually try to close out their team. If this was a playoff series, I think they'd go out next game and smack the Cavaliers by 30 because they want to prove, no, we're the better team, which is what I hope they do tonight. We'll get into that a little bit later. Really, tale of two halves for Jason Tatum. In the first half, he had 22 points. He went 5 for 6 from 3. He was scorching hot. You think, oh, there's a chance he actually drops 50. And then the second half, he comes out and just stinks up the whole court. 1 for 12 from the field, not from 3, from the field, with just 4 points. Very, very much an anomaly for him. Reminded me of the old Jason Tatum getting frustrated, chucking shots when it's not falling, trying to shoot himself out of that slump. Didn't quite work out. This was a poor game from the Celtics all around, besides that first half from Tatum. Brown had a solid game, 21 points, 8 for 20 from the field. Kristaps Porzingis, 24, 9, and 3 blocks. He was that guy in the clutch. He seems to be one of the most clutch performers on the Celtics, I will say for sure. He, especially down the stretch, he's such a good weapon for them. He's going to be key for their playoff run. I think he should have had the ball at the end. Besides that, Drew was fine. Derek White wasn't his best scoring game. His first points was actually when he had that falling down and one, which was an incredible play. But just sort of a mid-game from everyone. Hauser was fine, except the time he got crossed up. That was not as bad as the media made it seem. He really tripped on Al Horford, but he should have been, all the way in the paint when Garland was taking a 3. That was a pretty good step back from Darius Garland. You got to give Dean Wade his flowers. Tremendous showing from him, especially in that fourth quarter. The Celtics allowed him to get hot. They weren't playing him the way they should have, and if you have a shooter like that in the NBA, if you give him that many opportunities, they're going to get hot, and they're going to torch you, and that's exactly what happened. Dean Wade absolutely cooked the Celtics. It wasn't pretty. They got lazy, and that's what happens. Now, the reaction from some of the fans, this has been a more level-headed reaction from fans that I've seen in the past, but from the media, oh my God. If you watch Colin Cowherd's segment yesterday about you just ragging on the Celtics. First of all, that show only talks about the Celtics after they lose, never after they win. So, and that seems to be the narrative from a lot of the media, is that when the Celtics win, not a peep. When the Bucks lost to the Warriors last night by 35, I haven't really seen the media today, but I guarantee you the coverage wasn't as bad as when the Celtics dropped it in the fourth quarter. Because the Celtics have a target on their back, and this is a good thing. I like that. The Celtics should have a target on their back. They're the best team in the NBA. They've shown it all season. They have the best record by far, Eastern Conference or Western Conference. I think they're 6 games up on the top seed in the NBA. They just had their 13th loss, and it's March. This is the best record they've had since they won the championship in 08. They should have a target on their back because they are genuine title contenders. They are by far the favorites. But the overreactions I saw yesterday and heard from certain media personalities, egregious. The Celtics spend so much time blowing teams out of the water. The only thing I will give them is that, yes, we need to figure out this late game execution problem, but how can you look at the Celtics this season and think that any team can beat them in a 7-game series? There's only been one team that's beaten them twice. It's the Indiana Pacers so far. Right? They swept the Heat. They swept the Knicks. They only lost once to the Sixers. They split with the Bucks. We'll see what happens next game. I'm looking forward to that. But how could you look at this team and think that any team could catch them in a 7-game series? I just don't get it. Because they bounce back so well from losses too. And I really hope they do tonight. I'll get into that in just a second. But regardless, it's ridiculous to me that the media is putting the spin now that the Celtics are in trouble. And the target is very much on the Celtics' back to perform at a high level every single game. That's not going to happen for any NBA team, right? Michael Jordan's team's lost. The Warriors, 73-9. They had 9 losses in that historic season, and they had a loss in Game 7 in the finals, right? Every team loses. But for this Celtics team, I'm still so confident. Also, this game doesn't matter. Also, it's a one-off. We'll see how they respond tonight. Now, getting into tonight, heavyweight showdown, potential finals preview against the Denver Nuggets in Denver at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Should be a really, really good game. JB might not play. That'll obviously, I think, make it closer. I expect the Celtics to come out tonight with urgency, with energy, with passion, really trying to get by the media narrative, really trying to get by what they said about them after last game, that Tatum's not clutch, this and that. I expect them to come out swinging tonight. Expect a really good game from KP. He had a solid game last time out, especially in that first quarter against the Nuggets. He had 21 points throughout the whole game. It's the perfect chance to bounce back, right? The Nuggets, I think, are the one team that everyone says, okay, they could actually give the Celtics trouble. I think, for sure. Besides maybe the Bucks and the Clippers. But the Nuggets, I think, are, besides the Celtics, they're still the alpha. They're the defending champions. They have the best player in the world, undoubtedly. So they're still the guys. If the Celtics go in there into their house and earn a convincing victory, the narrative will flip right back to where the Celtics are the guys. The Nuggets, still have work to do before they can catch them. I think they're fully healthy tonight. I haven't checked out their injury report, but I know it's going to be Jokic, Murray, and Porter. They're still the champions, right? They have nothing to prove right now because they already won it. We know that they can do it. The Celtics still have to prove that they can do it. So if they can go in there tonight and really beat them by double digits, that'll be a tremendously impressive result for the Celtics, especially if they can do it without JB. I don't know if he's playing yet. They haven't announced it. He's dealing with a, what is it? It's a joint, SI joint, I think. Yeah, I think it's his SI joint is sprained, which is your hip in your back. So hopefully he ends up playing. If not, I would still expect a Celtics victory. I think Tatum's going to have a great game tonight. Porzingis is going to have a great game. I think everyone all across the board, they're going to do well. They let the lead slip last time out. Don't think they're going to be doing that again this time. If the Warriors game was any indication, and yes, the Nuggets are better than the Warriors, the Celtics let that huge lead slip against the Warriors. I think it was 17 points they were up. And then we all saw what happened on Sunday. So hopefully, I don't think we're going to beat them by 50, but hopefully they get a solid 10, 15-point victory. That would feel very good. The Celtics, I think, show up when they care, and I think they're going to care a lot tonight. So I will take the Celtics by 12 points in Denver, statement win in a potential finals preview. All right, let's talk Bruins splitting their 2 games so far this week. 4-1 victory on Monday against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who they will again face tonight in Boston. Very impressive win from them in Toronto. Pavlo Zacha, 2 goals, Debrusk with a goal and an assist, and Pasta with 3 assists total. So you like to see that from some of your best players stepping up in big moments. This is how the Bruins team should play. They came out after an embarrassing loss to the Islanders this weekend, and they were just on the front foot the whole time. The Leafs didn't get their goal until the third period, and it was all too late at that point. I thought the defense looked a lot better. It also looked better on Tuesday, even though they dropped that one. I'll get into that. But the defense looked better. They distributed the puck well. They weren't getting pressed like they've been at so many times in this season where they're getting so much pressure on their side of the ice. I feel like they had a great tempo, a great flow to the game. Very, very important road win. You can tell that this was a game that meant a lot to the Bruins because the narrative is shifting on them. You don't talk about the narrative shifting on the Celtics. The Bruins are having a really, really crazy momentum shift right now because they keep having all these overtime losses. They're still getting points, but still they have the most overtime losses in the league. So it's a kind of negative narrative for them right now, even though, yes, they are still in that race for the first seed. They are still considered contenders, but once you get in the playoffs, overtime losses don't give you anything, right? They don't give you a point. They give you a loss in a 7-game series. So this is definitely a real concern for the Seas that reared its ugly head out again on Tuesday against the Oilers. Now, Zacha did have a great goal. It was a total gridlock for the first 2 periods. In the third period, Zacha scored a goal from pretty far out, sort of slap shot, went in, snuck right by the keeper, the tender, right in the right, the goaltender, the tender. I keep saying keeper because I talk about soccer all the time. Snuck right by the goalie on the right side. Solid showing from the defense again until the end. They just got gassed. Now, when I had Danielle Dubois on last episode, she talked about how the Bruins should really experiment with switching their lines more often, giving some of those top guys more of a break, especially down the stretch. You could tell they were gassed. That's how they surrendered that last goal in regulation, and it's how they surrendered the goal in overtime. So, unfortunate that the Bruins got another overtime loss. They need to be better at home, man. It's another home loss, another home overtime loss. Like, the fans are into it. Why aren't the players reciprocating that energy on the offensive end? And I think, like, you know, it wasn't a total sleep fest. Like, even though it was a low-scoring game, it was still exciting. But the thing with the Bruins is that they need to have that constant effort, and we need to be distributing who we're playing in terms of lines and, you know, actually making sure that these guys up top get a breather so that they can give their best. The question is, obviously, going into tonight's game, where I think they'll win, by the way, because they have the confidence against this team now. Is this Jake Debrusk's last game? It's currently 2:30. Could he be dealt before this game takes place? As I'm recording this, has he already been dealt? And I don't know because I don't have Twitter on right now. I don't know. There's a lot of talk. A lot of talk. The big one that I've heard is Elias Lindholm taking over at that centerman role, which is obviously there's been a huge hole there ever since Krejci and Bergeron left. But could Elias Lindholm be the guy to step up, really solidify that center role? He is coming off of his contract right now, but the Bruins might be interested. Debrusk is as well, so they might be interested in moving in a different direction. Debrusk has been working out the way that they wanted him to, especially this season. It's been kind of a weird season, even though he did have a decent game on Monday. I'll say it, he had a good game on Monday. Regardless, you can't just look at one game and say, okay, we should keep him. It's clear that something isn't working there. So the Bruins need to add to their depth at the centerman position to really just, you know, stabilize the line, stabilize the play for the Bruins. And I think that, you know, from what I've heard, I saw it on Bleacher Report today. I saw it all over X. I almost said Twitter. It's X. That the Bruins are very interested in making this happen. So we'll see. Tomorrow's the deadline. I wouldn't be surprised if DeBrusk got shipped off, but you never know. I think Elias Lindholm would be a great spark. Add some more structure. Hampus Lindholm should be coming back. He's not going to be there tonight, but he is inching closer to a return per Connor Ryan from the Boston Globe. He should add something for them. Now, for tonight's game, I would expect a big victory. I mean, I don't see a reason why they shouldn't just beat this team that they just beat on Monday on the road. Now they're in Boston with the fans behind them. It'd be a huge disappointment if they dropped this one, if they lost in overtime. Please don't do that. Just win. Just go out there and win. You know, obviously it's such a, like, the Bruins don't have any cap space. Like, it's not like they can add a ton of stuff because they already have so many players of quality. So you have to go out there and show the media and show the people, show the fans that you can do it. And I believe in the Bruins. I think that they can do it. I don't see why they can't. I've said this, you know, all 4 episodes so far. They have the talent, they have the coaching, they've proven they could win games, although, last year they had a little bit of a different cast. This cast has also proven that they can win games, right? They're a top seed in the East. So I want to see them go out tonight, statement victory, stop losing in overtime, stop taking your foot off the gas, just push, come out with a victory. I will take the Bruins tonight. I don't think it'll be as wide margin as it was on Monday. I think it'll be 3-2. I think it'll be closer, but I think the Bruins just edge it out, take that win in what might be Jake Debrusk's last game. All right, welcome back. I am joined today by Khalin Kapoor, one of the various voices of the Northeastern Huskies men's hockey team. He is a play-by-play, very talented play-by-play announcer. He's also done a lot of work with Boston Globe today, behind the scenes, and actually on camera. He's been on NESN twice, so big time claim to fame. One of the rising young stars in the sports media industry. Khalin, how are you today?
Jackson, I'm doing great. I appreciate the intro. You're talking about me. How about you? You're the talk of Titletown over here, Jack. I'm honored to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Yes, exactly. All 5 listeners are going to really be impressed with you. All right, so we're going to talk Patriots today. Obviously, free agency's starting to kick off already. It's going to kick off even more next week. And then, of course, we have the draft. And the Patriots have a buttload of cap space, $103 million to be exact. A lot of directions they could go this offseason with the draft. So let's start with that draft because there's a lot of speculation about what they're going to do. Should they take a quarterback with that 3rd pick, or should they take somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr., arguably the best player available, or should they trade back? I hope they don't trade back. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think of the options, Marvin Harrison Jr. seems like the one that you can kind of toss out. I don't think getting a weapon at 3 makes a lot of sense with the current quarterback situation. Trading back is one of those things that it doesn't really give you a glimpse into a blockbuster type deal. It's not something that's going to revitalize the fan base. I think, Jackson, you not wanting to trade back is kind of the microcosm of that macrocosm. It's like fans don't want the team to tread water. They don't want the team to go get some random 3rd-round quarterback that's not going to lead the franchise for years to come. I think at this point, even if it is a Jaden Daniels, who I think is the choice here, and I know that you're a fan of Daniels as well, I think it's the quarterback at 3. There have been rumors that they're going to trade up to 1. I don't think they need to do that. I think Daniels should be their guy. If the Commanders go and take Daniels at 2, it's a little bit of a different conversation. But I think even if it's May, I would be more unhappy than if it was Daniels. But I think at 3, the choice is the quarterback. It's the most important position in sports, right? There's no reason to not get a potential game changer. And weapons are important, but a weapon is nothing without a good quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I think the people who are in my comments bullying me, telling me that they should take Harrison because he's the best available. Well, who's going to throw to him? Mac Jones, right? It's like,
yeah. I mean, look at what
need someone to throw.
Davante Adams is doing in Las Vegas. Like,
right, exactly.
You can be the best wide receiver in the NFL, and you have Jimmy Garoppolo throwing it to you. You're not gonna move the needle for your team.
Every Super Bowl team from this era, they didn't do it with a good receiver and a bad quarterback. Like they've all had Mahomes, Brady. Who else has won recently? Matt Stafford. It's all been because of good quarterback play, not because of good individual wide receiver play. It just doesn't work. So, and I'm not saying the Patriots are going to
elevate their wide receivers.
Exactly.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point of the quarterback position, right?
I'm not saying that the Patriots are going to be a Super Bowl team next year, but you have to start off with that basis of like, okay, the quarterback is the most important position in the NFL, probably in sports, in all of sports. The quarterback might be the most important position. If you have a chance at a guy like Daniels, and I like Daniels more than May, but even if you have a chance at May, like you take that chance, I think for sure.
I would agree, and if the 3rd overall pick is like a legitimate claim for the Patriots. If other teams are going to be clamoring for this pick for that spot. The Commanders are facing the same thing. The Bears are facing the same thing, and the 1 and the 2. So look, if there is a deal that's so good you can't pass up, that stockpiles you for later 1st-round picks and for years to come, maybe, like that's a maybe. Like I still feel that as a treading water type move, and that's not going to do much for a fan base and for a team that's really tired of mediocrity, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it is kind of like narrative based, but still that's an important part of this equation. It's like you can get a player that's going to be the face of this team in a year, in 2 years.
And this looks like one of the most talented quarterback pools that we've had
exactly.
In a
and
while,
you don't know what it's going to look like next
right.
year.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be as good as it is this season. So I think the choice at this juncture is clear. The only wrinkle is, what if there's a shakeup at 1 or 2 in this draft, and then there might have to be a reconfiguration. I don't know if it changes the Patriots' calculus too much, though, because I think their calculus should be, let's get a player that's going to lead our team in the future.
Yep, I agree. So you talk about leading the team in the future. Assuming that they take a quarterback with that first pick, do you think they should throw him in the ringer, let him start right away, like we've seen with Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud this past year? Or should they sign? There's a couple decent veteran options who aren't long-term fixes; they're short-term guys. But would it be wise to bring in a Kirk Cousins or a Baker Mayfield or a Jacoby Brissett and let the new guy sit behind them for a year and learn from them, or should they just be starting right away?
It's not wise to get Cousins for sure. I mean, the money's going to be extravagant, and Cousins is a good quarterback, but it just doesn't work for me, right? I think Brissett, there's connections there, there's interest there. I don't hate it. I really don't. I think Brissett is a player. He was in Washington. He was obviously with Cleveland and with the Patriots. He's a player that is by all accounts, a great locker room presence and a great mentor for young quarterbacks. He was that player for Sam Howell, who hasn't really worked out in Washington, but whatever. So yeah, I think Brissett seems to be like a smart move. And the overarching holistic question here is, should the Patriots start the rookie or should they start the veteran? And this one is iffy. It's from system to system, right? Look at Young and Stroud, the quarterbacks you mentioned. Look at the systems around them and the success that they both had and lack thereof for Bryce Young. I don't know if the Patriots are built right now for a rookie quarterback. I just don't think they are. I think if they do sign Brissett, if they do sign Mayfield, I don't know if that one's going to happen either.
I don't think Tampa's going to let Mayfield go. I think
that's the thing. I don't think that one's going to happen, especially after the year ended for Tampa. So, and the way that they were successful in the playoffs. Right. So I think if it is Brissett, I could see the argument for throwing him in there for the first couple of weeks of the season, just to get your bearings. Look, this offensive line did not do Mac Jones any favors last season. They're looking into improving that, which, you would hope they would, obviously. But there's a lot of holes on this roster, right? It's not going to be fixed by one draft. It's not going to be fixed by one offseason. I'm not saying sit Jaden Daniels for an entire season, but I think it's a smart move in my mind if you pick up a guy like Brissett to have him start for a couple of games and let the rookie get his feet wet in practice, in preseason, and then see what you have.
Yeah, I think I agree with it, but it also depends on the other moves that they make this offseason.
It depends on the team around them, and it always does.
Yeah, I like the defense should come out again and be really good.
Yeah.
They're going to, they obviously transition tag Kyle Duggar earlier this week, so he's probably going to be sticking around. They can re-sign, some of their guys. They're going to have Jabril Peppers back, Judon. And they can get more pieces. There's a lot of good defensive pieces, which we'll get into in just a second, that they could bring on. But offensively, the wide receiver market this year is pretty barren, to be honest, especially after T. Higgins and Michael Pittman were franchise tagged and Evans was re-signed. It doesn't look like they're going to get like a alpha at wide receiver. They're going to have to sort of scrape together what they have. Hopefully, Pop Douglas takes another step in the right direction. Maybe they can get somebody. I agree. And you never know what they're going to get. Tyquan Thornton, maybe he'll come out and have a good season. They'll draft somebody. I don't know. We'll see. Running backs is another thing. They might end up with a whole new running back. They could get like Saquon Barkley or something. So again, it's like we don't know. But if the Patriots go into the season, if it started today and all they had was just a new quarterback, yeah, I would say get the veteran guy in there first. They're not gonna do anything because of their lack of production potentially on offense. So getting into free agency, there's obviously a lot of news this week, and there's going to be a lot more news. I mentioned a couple quarterbacks earlier. Does Russell Wilson make any sense for this Patriots team? Do you think he has any juice left in the tank?
Okay, there's two questions there, right? I don't think he makes sense for the Patriots. I think there is juice left in the tank. It is interesting. Like, for a guy like Wilson and Brissett, there are a lot of differences. Wilson, you're not going to sign to be a bridge for a season for Daniels. They're going to sign Wilson to start for the year, right? Brissett maybe 4 or 5 games, and then you see what you have in the rookie. For Wilson, the money, it's not going to be as extravagant as the Broncos contract, obviously, but there's going to have to be some money involved there to get a guy like Wilson. And I think he's still a good quarterback. I think there are so many external factors in Denver. I'm not saying he played amazing because he didn't. He didn't play. He didn't play up to the caliber that he's played in his career. I don't think this one fits. I think Wilson fits a little bit more with a team like the Steelers, maybe even a team like the Washington Commanders. Who knows? That's my third Commanders reference here today. I wonder why. But look, I think the decision making process for the Patriots should be what is the easiest bridge to a guy like Daniels, to a guy like May. If New England signs Wilson, it's probably going to be a 1-year contract where he's expected to start the entire season.
To prove
I don't
here.
That's the best thing for Daniels and for this team rebuild as a whole. I don't think Wilson is going to make this team a playoff team, right? At the most, he's an 8-win team for the Patriots, and I don't think that's enough. It seems like a lateral step when the Patriots are trying to move forward with a new core.
It's a treading water move, as you said earlier. All right, moving away from the quarterback position, Buffalo Bills released Jordan Poyer and Tre'Davious White. I'm more interested in Jordan Poyer. What do you think about him on the Patriots?
Look, the Patriots don't need. I guess they do need some help defensively. I think anyone you can possibly get for New England is good. Poyer has been a really good player, right, for Buffalo. Last season, okay, I guess. I think for New England, it comes down to the money. They have a lot of money to spend in terms of cap space. I don't think this player should be one that is necessarily a primary target for New England. The way that defensively, I think Kyle Duggar has been re-signed. So look, I think you focus on other areas of the ball here, but Boyer's a good player potentially. It doesn't really move the needle for me though.
I just love it because he's from the Bills and he's been their guy for years, and I would love to take him from them and have him get a game-sealing interception or something. Among the same vein, I think Justin Simmons you're going to be more excited about. Broncos just released him earlier today. He's an all-pro caliber player that I think could really help the defense for the Patriots.
Yes, I agree. He's the player that has been at an elite caliber. Poyer's been good. I think Simmons has been elite for 5 years now. It's probably even longer than that.
Yeah, I read today he has the most interceptions since he's been drafted in 2016.
Yeah, I think it's 30.
Yeah.
So that's a player that I am definitely wanting the Patriots to go for and really pursue. And I think when you're the Patriots, you have some cards to play when you're trying to attract free agents, the pedigree of the team, but also the promise of the future with an entirely new coaching staff, with a potentially new offensive core, with everything that's been going on around them in the NFL. I think the Patriots could be a really prime landing spot for Simmons. And I think this is the kind of player that we've seen a couple of times in off seasons with Belichick, with him in the GM role, that they don't really aggressively go after these big players. What's the last huge free agent that the Patriots have gotten? I honestly don't know.
Antonio Brown, maybe.
Antonio Brown, maybe.
Which was 5 years ago.
Yeah, so this is the kind of thing I talk about revitalizing a fan base a lot. This is the kind of thing that the Patriots can do to show that they're kind of turning the card to a new core, to a new era of Patriots football that is centered around making deals when you need to make deals and getting players when you need to make them. I think Simmons is the guy that the Patriots can really pursue aggressively, and he'd be a real help to the back end of the secondary.
I think Christian Wilkins is another interesting option from Miami. We don't have to go on him, too much, but I think that'd be another really good option to bolster the line. Another AFC East former player. Let's move to the offensive end. My guy that I really, really want the Patriots to be aggressive and get, Tyron Smith, the longtime left tackle from the Cowboys. I think it would be a seamless fit, especially because Trent Brown hasn't worked out the way that they wanted him to. I think he walks this season. They let him walk. I think Tyron Smith would be a seamless replacement and really help out, whether it's that young guy or whatever they decide to do at quarterback. I think he'd be a really good piece for them.
Yeah, Patriots are reported to be pursuing him already. A couple of days ago, that report came out, and that's going to be obviously a couple of weeks down the line, but the seamless fit is there, and obviously the need is there. This is the team that had a lot of trouble in the offensive line. Mac Jones and Sappy were running for their lives, and when you have a rookie quarterback who's expected, we're expecting them to pick a rookie quarterback here who might get time at the end of the season, you need them to be protected. Look at Bryce Young. He had less than a second in the pocket before everything was collapsing around him, and you saw how that worked out. So, and obviously Smith, a 2-time All-Pro, he's been in the Pro Bowl, I think 8 times in his career. This would be a really big add, and it would also really solidify the pieces around him that a lot. There was so much shakeup in the offensive line last year. Having an anchor there who can play his position, obviously add some more durability to the rest of the spots on the O-line would be really important. And yeah, I mean, we're talking about great players in free agency. Obviously, it would be great if the Patriots could get all of them. But I think with the way this team is constructed, it's not unrealistic and unreasonable to be like, yo, like this team needs so much help. And this is their offseason to do it. It's an entirely new staff. Like I said, there's not too many financial limitations here. It's not, I don't think it's unrealistic for the Patriots to get a couple of these big deals done this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, with all that cap space, they also have to draft well, but it's a really big offseason for them for their future. The thing I'll say with Tyron Smith, it reminds me of, we talked about Bryce Young not having the help, but CJ Stroud had Larry Tunsil, and look how much of an impact that made on his development. So if you could have somebody like that, just somebody really solid, and they could re-sign Mike Onwenu, who's been really solid for them as well. David Andrews, I think, is coming back. He might announce his retirement, but I think he's going to run it back for 1 or 2 more seasons. So I think that he'd be a huge addition. And the last thing I'll ask you about is they have so many running backs on this market now that are so good. Now, the Patriots have Ramondre Stevenson, who has dealt with some pretty hefty injury issues these past couple of years. He's been solid when he's there. But, I mean, what would a Ramondre Stevenson, like Saquon Barkley backfield look like? I just think that would be so good and could really help the Patriots offensively.
Oh, my God. It would really. I mean, there's so much you can say about Saquon. He's been the entire Giants offense for 2 years, going on 3 at this point after getting drafted so high up. And he's everything that the Giants were and tried to be. And you pair him with a mobile quarterback, like a guy like Daniels, and Drake May is not the most mobile. He's not a pure anchor pocket passer guy. So you pair him with a mobile quarterback, and you saw what he could do when there was the threat of Jones running whenever Jones was on the field. This would be a huge add. I don't think this one's going to happen. I think this is a little bit of wishful thinking for us here on the podcast. I think if we're looking at options for the Patriots, it's probably going to be a lower tier guy, maybe a Zach Moss potentially. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be the Jacobs or the Tony Pollard or Saquon Barkley in this situation. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I agree because they have other things that they need to address more because they do have Ramondre.
And Ramondre's a really great running back.
Yeah, I agree. And even re-signed Zeke. I was happy with Zeke's production last year as well. So
I think I mean the way that he responded after the way his season or his career ended with the Cowboys. Yeah. He was a productive running back who excelled in pass protection, who got goal line work and took over the backfield in terms of receiving work when Stevenson got injured. And that's exactly what the Patriots needed him to be, and he did that.
He had a couple of great games down the stretch for sure. So I'd love to bring him back. I don't think they need to splash with Saquon. I'd rather focus on some of the other guys that we talked about, but decisions. So we'll see how it all unfolds. We're looking forward to it. Colin, thanks so much for joining in today.
Thanks for having me, Jackson. I appreciate the invite, and I'm enjoying seeing the rise of the Triple T here for this podcast.
T. All right, well, you'll for sure be back. Great job, Colin. See you later.
See ya.
All right, let's talk about the New England Revolution. Great win last night in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I know not a lot of people actually watch this or care about it. I watched it. I thought it was great. It's just still perplexing to me why they can have so much success against these teams, which I know are a little bit worse quality than the teams that they're facing in the MLS, but they look like a completely different team in this tournament. Sean Kalai with 2 goals. One of them was a penalty. The scoring was actually started off by Nick Lima, the right back, which was surprising for sure, to say the least. And Esmir Bayraktarovic netted the 4th for them to wrap things up for this first leg. Have a very commanding lead, 4-0 shutout. They'll take the plane to Costa Rica, where they had the second leg against Alajuelense, who they played obviously last night. I should have mentioned that. So they will have the second leg. I expect them to obviously win. That'd be shocking if they didn't. But let's talk about their MLS play, right? Because this weekend they are facing Thiago Almada and Atlanta United, which should be a very tough matchup. I know Atlanta hasn't looked great so far this season, but neither is New England, but it's 2 games in. So I fully expect New England to start winning games and start doing it soon because their confidence is rising. My question is, Carles Hill is going to be playing. It looks like he was available on the bench last night. I don't anticipate him sitting this one out, so I think you should have your important guys there. Will Vrioni get the start at striker, or will they keep rolling with Sean Kalai? Because he looked great last night. Sean Kalai looked like a natural striker. He had a great goal. He's so fast. He's so talented. One of New England's best players. He's emerged as that at this point. So the question is, will they keep running him at number 9, or will they bring in Vrioni? I honestly hope they stick with Sean Kalai because the Revs have such a huge amount of depth in the midfield and on the wings, but not a lot of depth at the striker position, center forward position. So I hope that they can start grooming Shankalai to be that next number 9, because Vrioni's better off the bench. Frankly, he's just not that good. So if you can, start developing Shankalai as a true number 9, have him pushing up the field, putting his team in chances to score goals, then I think you'll have a lot more success as a team. Bayraktarovic looked really good last night. I hope he'll continue that. I'm, again, not sure if they'll be playing Noel Buck. Not sure if Mensah will be back in there, even though he had a good game last night. Based off the last lineup that the Revs rolled out, it was they had Too Fast, Too Feral, Andrew Farrell at right back. I hope they put Lima back there because I think Farrell is getting older. He's lost a lot of his speed. Lima has looked good so far. Romney, Kessler, you can swap out Kessler with Mensah if you want to. DeJuan Jones, obviously. Ravas had a decent game last night. He had a couple good saves. I really hated on him after that first game. I think he had a solid game against Toronto. I think he was fine. Hopefully he continues to improve. Maybe the New England Revolution Magic Goalkeeper Factory can continue developing him. We'll see. Even though he is obviously an older guy than Matt Turner was and that DJ Petrovic was, they had more potential. But Ravas, I think, has a chance to be solid. I know I really hated on him after that first game where he was dreadful. But, settling in, new system, new guys to work with on defense. So looking a little bit better there. Now, in terms of the midfield, I'd love to see Buck back out there. Didn't have a great game last time out against Toronto. Hoping for a bounce-back game from him. Bayraktarovic, Hill, obviously. You're going to have, I just talked about Shankalai. So, we'll see how it shapes up. I don't know about Vrioni, but again, when all those players I just named are quality. They're this is a good team. New England is a good team, and they should be able to win more games than they have been able to so far. I wish they had gotten at least one victory, but now's the time to start rolling, right? You're coming against Atlanta. You don't want to go 0-3. This is a must-win game for them, I think, because if you go 0-3, that's different than 0-2. If you go 1-2, then, you're fine. You got to win one more, and then you're even on the season. It's so early on. But 0-3... then it's time to sort of be like, okay, is this how it's going to go the whole season? Are they in trouble? Do they start panicking? Do the players lose confidence in themselves? Which is why I'm thankful for the CONCACAF Champions Cup, because I think that the players have been able to keep that confidence up. They have all the world to be confident about after last night's victory. So it will be interesting to see how it goes. Atlanta, obviously has fallen off a little bit because they've lost some talent over the years. But Thiago Almada's one of the best players in the MLS, if not. No, okay, Messi's in the MLS, so I can't say he's the best player in the MLS. But he is one of the best non-Messi players in the MLS. I might put him a second or third, to be honest. He's a really good player. So it'll be interesting to see how the Revs do against him. I'm going to be an optimist, especially after what I've seen in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I'm going to give the Revs a narrow victory on this one. 2-1. I know it's what I said last time, but I think it's a fair argument. I'm going to give it to the goals to Bayraktarovic and Shankalai. I think Carles Hill assists to one or both. So yeah, 2-1 Revolution. We'll see what happens on Saturday. All right, let's talk Red Sox. I have to say I've been impressed with their spring training tenure so far. I think it's been decent. I know they're experimenting with a lot of different guys, but I've liked what I've seen from some of your guys. Masataka Yoshida has looked good. I'm glad that Trevor Story is at full health. I think the Sox this year will be better than a lot of people expect them to be. They're currently down 3-1 against the Braves at the bottom of the fifth inning. They have their national TV game on ESPN. Masataka Yoshida with a solo homer in the first inning. Braves are able to bounce back. We'll see what happens at the end of it. But obviously the news we have to talk about is Lucas Giolito coming down with a potential season-ending MCL partial tear. This is a huge, major blow to the Red Sox. They were hoping that Giolito would be a big part of their pitching rotation. And to respond to that, I don't know if it was a direct response to it or if they're already planning this, they inked their young pitching phenom, who they are putting a lot of their hope in, as we see from this deal. They inked him to a $55 million contract extension over 6 years. Now, even though the pitcher wasn't expected to hit free agency until after the 2028 season, they want to lock him down. They want to get him there till 2030. So they're giving him a raise. Good for him. I really like Brayan Bello. I think he could be a great piece for the Red Sox this year. But they still have to figure things out. They need to figure out their pitching depth. You know, we obviously have guys like Pavetta, who's playing today, who got the start today. But you know, the Red Sox need to get another pitcher now, I think, for sure. And I know that there's been controversy with John Henry doesn't want to pay. John Henry doesn't care about the team. Well, you need to start caring about the team. And I ragged on John Henry in my first episode because of how I feel about the Red Sox. I think I said I was the least most confident in them. I'm decently confident in them, even though I said I was the least confident in them, because I think that they're still going to win some games. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they got a wild card spot this year, because I just think that I think that they still have a decent roster on one side. They need to figure out their pitching. They need to figure out their defense. But offensively, I think they actually have a decent roster. So I think they can surprise a lot of people this year. But the problem is the pitching. Even though they just inked Bello to that extension, now they have to go back to the drawing board because they lost Giolito. They need to get a more solid rotation. I know Jordan Montgomery is still available. I would love for them to get him. I don't know if they will, but hopefully they do, especially now after Giolito went down, because they need to get better at pitching. It's been their problem for years, right? It has been a significant problem because Chris Sale can never stay healthy. They had Eovaldi, but they let him go. So here's the question. Are they going to be able to figure out this season? And the answer right now looks like no. Even though they do have Brayan Bello, and I like Brayan Bello a lot, it's going to take more than just Brayan Bello for them to be successful this season. I will say a quick shout out, WEBN. I went to the Super Bowl with them just a few weeks ago. It is the Emerson Broadcast Network, where I still obviously attend. They will be going to spring training next week. I'm going to try to get some insider info. Danielle Dubois, who was just on the show earlier, is going to be there. So we will certainly bring her in, see what's going on. They'll be talking to the players. They'll be going to some of the Red Sox games. So good stuff there. But for now, I feel decent about the Red Sox, more so than some people do, just because I really like what they have offensively. The pitching needs to be figured out, though. I'm happy for Bello. I like Bello. I like the Sox. This was pretty gutsy for them to sign this guy, a guy that wasn't even supposed to hit free agency until 2028, saying, no, we really like this guy. We're going to give him even more money and even more time from our future because we're really committed to him. So hopefully that's a bargain, 6-year, 55. I think it might be because we've seen a lot of potential from this kid, so hopefully he can really emerge as the Red Sox main pitcher and also somebody who can get the job done and, is good in terms of a national standard, not just a Red Sox standard, because that's what he's been. He's been good by Red Sox standards, but hopefully the Red Sox can finally get this kid to be a, world-class pitcher. Could it happen? I don't know. Maybe. You never know. For now, I feel good about the Red Sox. I don't think they're going to win this one against the Braves. It doesn't look too good. But I'm so excited for the Red Sox season to actually start. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to be talking about it all summer on this podcast. Can't wait. I'm going to go to a ton of games. Hopefully we can get some players on here. I got those connections, so we'll see. But definitely stay tuned, baseball fans. We're going to have a lot on the Sox. So yeah, I feel decent. And hopefully they can finish off spring training with a bang. That is all the time I have today for Titletown Talk. Thank you so much for joining in. Thanks so much to Khalin Kapoor for joining us also today. Pleasure to have him on. We'll, I'm sure, have him on coming up soon. Like I said, I'm Jackson Tolliver. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll see you on Sunday.